So in the first example, we're going to see 3 over 8 is equal to x over 40. The main thing that you want to pay attention to on your homework or test is this word, solve. When it's asking you to solve, you want to first remember cross multiply, and then second, go ahead and use your steps to isolate the variable and solve for it. I know, sounds confusing. I'm going to work it out for you guys so you can see the example. What do I always do when I have proportions? I want to first understand that there's one ratio, or you can say one fraction on each side of the equal sign. That's the main thing you want to know. Once you have that, you can go ahead and cross multiply. One of my students said, "Hey Brian, it looks like a butterfly." And I was like, "Yeah, it does." So you can think of it as a butterfly. Go ahead and make the butterfly right there. And it kind of does with its wings. If I drew a little head right here, looks like a butterfly, right? So now we know that by doing this, we would say 8 times x is 8x. So let me go ahead and put this over here for you guys. 8x. And 3 times 40, if you don't know that, show your work, you'll get 120. Now this looks a lot easier to solve, doesn't it, than the original? So now we know that we can go ahead and solve for x. What do? Well, this is multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So when you isolate the variable, you always want to do the opposite. That will cancel out. Let's go ahead and bring our work down here now. X is equal to 120 over 8. Well, we're going to have to go ahead and divide that. Let's see. How many times does 8 go into 120? Well, 8 goes into 1 0 times. 8 goes into 12 1 time. So now we go ahead and multiply 8 times 1, which is 8. Subtract, that will give me 4, and then you bring down the 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Hey, what do you know? X equals 15. Now, if you guys want to go ahead and check it, on this example, I'm going to show you how you can check to make sure you got the answer right. Always encourage you to check it, especially on your test. What do I always say? If you have an opportunity to check, you can actually walk out of your testing. You know what? I know I've got this many answers right because I checked my work and they checked out right. So you can do that too. Let's go ahead and write that. So let's write check right here. Okay, so now let's go back to the original proportion. 3 over 8 is equal to, and let's go ahead and plug in 15 for x. 15 over 40. Well, remember, we cross multiply, right? And 8 times 15 has to equal 3 times 40 for it to actually be a proportion and for this to be correct. Well, let's go ahead and figure that out. I'm going to erase this. All right. 8 times 15, we already knew, since by doing our work, that that equals 120. And if you're having a hard time with that, again, just show your work. You'll see that 8 times 15 gives you 120. 3 times 40 120. Hey, guess what? It checks out. Check. So we know that we got it right. Now we know that 15 plugged in for x will give us a proportions that are equal to each other. Okay, this problem. 5 over b equal to 15 over 75. It seems like it's very hard to solve, but remember, let's just go ahead and cross multiply, and then we can go ahead and isolate the variable. How do we know we can cross multiply? Well, remember, we have to have one fraction on each side of the equal sign, which we do. So now we know we can go ahead and cross multiply. Or what I like to say is go ahead and just make the butterfly. Again, remember, it looks like a butterfly because those look like the wings, right? B times 15 is 15b. 5 times 75. I don't encourage you to do that in your head. Go ahead and show your work. It's good practice for multiplication as well. All right. So 5 times 5, 25. carry the 2. 5 times 7, 35, plus 2 is 37. So now we know that 15b has to equal 375. Okay, let's go ahead and isolate the variable by doing the opposite. We divide both sides by 15. Now b is by itself. And let's find out how many times 15 goes into 375. Let's figure that out. 375 divided by 15. 15 goes into 37 2 times. 2 times 15 is 30. Minus 7, 75. We want to bring down the 5. 15 goes into 75 5 times. So now, by figuring this out, we can go ahead and see that b is equal to 25. Now, like the last example, I went ahead and told you, go back, plug this in for b, and you'll find out that the ratios are the same, which means they are proportions.